to be able to watch every episode that we upload on our channel. We're still in the process of coming up with a name. Um, Still working on it. But in the process, we are always making it happen on a weekly basis. Always making it happen. How's everyone doing this week? How's everyone doing this week? Go ahead and drop it in the chat.
What's going on, big bro?
What's going on? What's going on, little bro?
All right, man. How you feeling? Good?
Feeling good. What about you?
Everything good, man. Good. Hanging in here,
I feel you. I feel you.
taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, move the camera up a little bit. I'm getting you cut off over here.
Oh, okay. That was probably because of the split screen now. How's that?
Much better. Much better.
That's better?
You're looking crispy, little bro.
Thank you, man. Likewise.
All right. God bless everybody who's joining us tonight. For real, as always, it's a blessing to have y'all rocking with us tonight. Always, always.
Definitely, definitely. It definitely is.
And blessing to everybody who's watching us. I can see we got connections here on Facebook, on YouTube. Everybody who's rocking with us on Facebook and YouTube, God bless you guys as well. It's always, just a blessing to have you guys connected with us as well. Huge blessing.
For sure. Carol, doing well. Thank you, Jesus. Resting my legs. Had another procedure done. Well, I'm glad to have you on the live and being able to express that.
Amen.
Hoping for speedy recovery. Seems like you're doing well, and I hope it continues that way. So just do everything you have to do to make the recovery, I'm not going to say easy, but to make sure that you recover well, just in general.
Yeah, and we know that God will do that recovery, so we're expecting. I see your mom, Tia, puts bendiciones, bendición, Tia. Thank
Bendición,
you
mami.
por estar aquí con nosotros esta noche también, como siempre. Una bendición, una bendición.
Definitivamente. All right, just giving it a few. So we are connected on YouTube Live, Facebook Live. Welcome for those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. Really appreciate you. As everyone knows, we're on Thursdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and 5:30 p.m. Pacific, West Coast.
West Coast.
I think we're looking good, right?
I see Josh Lightskin puts the fire symbols. God bless you, Josh, for joining us.
Always, man. He's always supporting.
I think he's trying to be blessed before he watches the Celtics tonight. He's hoping that lights a fire. Oh, man, for real, for real.
Well, let's go ahead. Get started. Let's get started.
Let's go.
Yeah. And you know what? Right before I drop the topic, please don't forget to share the live. If there's anyone you need, that needs to hear a good message or to receive the topic that we're discussing today, on the bottom right corner, you have the option, like the paper plane. Click on it. Go ahead and just send it out. If you have any statements you want to make and want to keep it anonymous, on the bottom right corner, you'll see a bubble with a question mark. We'll keep it private. We'll go ahead and read anything you send over through there, and we'll keep it anonymous. We'll keep it extremely private. We won't say any names.
If one of the things I want to remind people of too is that, even if you don't think that it can be impactful to somebody, we've seen before, we've heard testimonies of people that like, oh, I didn't know that this person was going to be impacted this way, like just in sharing it, or random people that have really just dropped sometimes into the program, and they're like, yo, I don't even know how this came up in my feed, but it came up and I was blessed by it. So just remember, you don't know how somebody could be impacted. So It only takes a second. If you're on Facebook, a quick press of the share, write post, done. You don't even have to write anything. It automatically goes on your wall. YouTube, you hit share, you could text it to somebody. No limitations. They don't need social media. You don't know who you could bless that way. And of course, if you're on Instagram, like you said, just hit that little paper airplane. You're ready to go from there.
Sure. And what I was going to mention also, remember engagements. We appreciate all the engagements that take place in the chat at times. If you ever want to go ahead and join the live, remember, it's not only about us. It's the message that you have. You know, your testimony can help out a lot of people. We've had many, a few episodes where we had a few that gave their testimony and it helped others so much, you know, aside from whatever we discuss on the live. You know, go ahead and engage. Go ahead and add on anything you want to bring up. If a simple hello, you know, thank you, whatever it is, just get on the live. You'll be more than welcome. You know, we'll definitely let you join.
Yeah, right now, you know, especially right now, it's difficult times. You don't know who could be blessed by
your story.
By your story. Seriously.
For sure. Well, let's get started, Big Bro. Let's get started. So
what you got as a topic for today?
I've got the storms, the people, and time in our lives.
Storms, the people, and time in our lives. All right, let's go. Let's see what we got.
Yep. The storm, the people, and time in our lives. I want everyone to go ahead and think about the storms, right? Just go ahead. Whatever the first thing that comes to mind. It might be, is it the obstacles that I've had in the past, or are we talking about a real storm? You know, like, have I been involved in a storm? Like, what have I done? But when it comes to the storm, really think about it. Whenever we're going through difficult times, everyone reacts different, right? Everyone reacts different. Sometimes the pressure is more on others. Everyone has a different situation. Now, what have you done when you dealt with these storms? You know, what do you usually do when you hear about a storm, right? Or you're in a state where you guys experience a lot of storms. You let it pass, right? So I feel like this is something we have to discuss, because sometimes we want to do so much with the obstacles that come up in life that present themselves. It makes it totally difficult for us to move forward. Sometimes it even stops us. It holds us back, whatever the case is. But we're here to learn that we have to let these storms pass, right? And we're going to discuss the details. You know, we're definitely going to break it down. Now, most of us have gone through so much, and some of us may be going through so much currently. Now, think about the hard times you've experienced through time. Not only now, like, go ahead and look at your past. You know, some people may be going through it now. What are you doing during these difficult times for yourself, for the situation, or for someone else if there are others involved? A reminder of what I just finished saying a few minutes ago is storms come and go. Think of the storms you've experienced. What did you do? How did you survive? Now, if we discuss different stories, right, I may give a testimony where I would say, you know what, I couldn't control it. There was nothing that I can do. It was out of my control. So I just had to let it be, which is letting it pass, right? There's been many storms where I've been on both ends of the table, where I have no control over it and I learned to just let it pass, right? But that was through experience. There were other storms that I had, other obstacles, where I was trying to do anything and everything to figure out, why is this happening? What can I do? And I was actually creating a situation worse with my reaction or with my response to it. And I feel like this is something we have to talk about, because how many people suffer in silence? How many people suffer and they don't know what to do and who to talk to and how to react and how to respond to certain situations, whether it's people or a situation at work, in your home, whatever the case is. Big Run, I think we've all dealt with at some point in our life, you know, and if you haven't, you probably are right now, and you don't know what to do. And sometimes, again, we make these situations worse for ourselves, you know, again, because of our reaction and our responses to it. Um, there will always be storms. Let the storms do what it does. It's all about your perspective and mindset. There's been multiple episodes where we speak on perspective, where we speak on the mindset, where we speak on, focusing just in general, self-esteem, awareness in general. When it comes to awareness, it's something that I feel like we bring up every episode. The more you're aware of, the better you can actually handle yourself or handle someone else's problem or handle that current situation you're in. And I think that's very important. So my question to everyone, after everything that was said, when there's a storm, if you're dealing with anything now, do you try to stop the storm? Or are you willing to let it pass? Right? So are you going to stop a storm if it's raining crazy out there and we know it's horrible, the weather condition is horrible? Are you going to go outside and stop the storm? No. What you're going to do is stay indoors, right? Safety first, and let it pass. Then we deal with the aftermath. In our case, I want us to go ahead and apply it to our lives. Apply it to any issues that we're going through or anything that we've gone through that was so traumatic that is still affecting us today. One thing that I want to go ahead and put out, Big Bro, before I hand it over to you, is testimony. One thing that I've noticed, I'm crazy busy, always busy getting work done. We have responsibilities that we have to handle. And aside from those responsibilities, the huge responsibility is whenever we go through traumatic experiences, right, or situations, we are in a healing process, right? We are in a healing phase. Now, it's hard because you're doing multiple things at once, right? You're trying to take care of your household. You're trying to make sure that if there's food on the table, you keep that roof over your head. Everyone is stable mentally, emotionally, financially, in general. But then you also have to worry about fixing you, fixing your situation, fixing those who are around you. And when I say fixing those who are around you, is who are you going to include in your future and who are you going to exclude, right? There's a lot of things. What are the good habits that you have that you can maintain and continue? Or what are the bad habits that you would actually have to remove to improve yourself, right? So now we're hitting different angles here. And the testimony that I want to put out is that life is great, man. Life is good, but life does get tough at times. Why? Because of the past. I notice it's crazy how I've been getting PTSD in moments, right? Moments where I get PTSD, and it's critical. It's critical because that becomes very challenging, right? Because when you're trying to get things done, that can easily put you in a depressive phase or a moment of anxiety, maybe even a panic attack, because there's so many thoughts running through your mind where you're like, why is this happening? Why? I've healed. Like, what's going on? But then on the other end, I do tell myself and remind myself, it's a mix of two things, right? We do have control over our mind, but then you also have the enemy attacking you whenever you're doing the right thing, whenever you're actually doing so much, not for only yourself, but for others.
Yep.
Look how we get on the live every Thursday to give a good message, to talk about real life situation, which is going to help so many people, right? That does take a lot of time. It's not just something that comes to mind and I'm like, all right, let me just go ahead and discuss this. No, it takes time for me to gather these thoughts. It takes time because I'm an overthinker, right? When it comes to, is this the right thing? I want to go ahead and make sure that whatever it is that we're discussing makes sense. But when you're dealing with so many thoughts in mind, it's very troubling. It's hard. It's hard. Now let's go ahead and discuss someone who's watching right now who's having these difficulties, but they're unable to perform like they usually do at work or to perform in their household. Sometimes we need the energy. Sometimes we need the vibe. It's very easy to stay laying on a bed and unable to wake up because you just don't feel right today. Nah, man, you got to push yourself. Because I have those mornings. I'm an early bird, and I make sure that I wake up early every single day. Why? Because that's my first battle, is to wake up, believe it or not. Um, to wake up and first be grateful and thankful for seeing another day, for taking that breath, for being able to uh, have all my extremities, to have both my arms, my legs, to be able to think straight, even when my mind and my thoughts are really cloudy, to be able to eliminate any negative energy, any negative vibe, any negative thoughts, to have control over that. That's a blessing. You know how many people, they lose their mind?
Yep.
Some temporary, others permanent. It's really sad what's happening out here. It's really sad what's happening out here, and we have to become more aware of ourselves. And if anyone that's watching, listen carefully. Anyone that's watching, we're here for you. You're not alone. You're not alone. This is the reason why we put these testimonies out. This is the reason why we discuss these topics without fear, setting fear aside. This is why we say this platform is made of misery, is made of trauma, is made of any difficulties. A lot of things that we can relate to. A lot of things that we can relate to. And I know people are going to be afraid to go ahead and admit it, openly, because you can actually admit it to yourself, and that's great. But openly, I know you're going to be afraid, and I'm here to tell you, it's okay. You don't have to put your story out there. You don't have to put your testimony out there. Eventually, whenever you feel comfortable, when and if you feel comfortable doing so, I encourage you to do it, because you don't know who needs to hear it. There's been a lot of inspirational videos that I've come across, and if you know my profile, my page, that's all you see across. So it's not like I pretend. Like, the messages that I put up is because I appreciate it so much, and I feel like someone else deserves to hear it. Which is why I've been putting it in the reel section. Now it's actually, with the way reels work, the connection is just broad. You know what I mean? It's just a lot farther than just a regular post. And it's something that we need. We need more of. While I go ahead and hand it over to Pastor Carlos, I want everybody to drop a heart in the chat if you're feeling today's topic, because we're definitely going to go in today. We're going in. We're going to go in. No filter.
I think the topic is excellent. As you're mentioning the storms, the very first thing that I thought of was a couple of areas, a couple sections of the Bible real quick, where you essentially have storms, or at least strong winds that cause waves, which, I mean, that could be as bad as a storm, you know what I'm saying? Because it causes the same thing when you're at sea. And some of y'all kind of are going to have an idea as to where I'm going to go with it. But I kind of want to look at that, because you brought up a really good point, in the sense of, like, you were kind of alluding to how you react, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the reaction that you have. There's a few different things that I'm going to want to get at, and a few, in terms of a few different points that you made. One is, I know that there's a lot of people that are connected on our platform right now that believe that God is in control. You know what I'm saying? Whether there's somebody that goes to church at all, there's still that thought that God is in control for most of the people that are on the platform. Now, I want you to think about that. Like, if you believe that God is in control, when you're going through your difficulties, and I know that some of us are going through that difficulty right now in this point in time, why are you worrying? I want you to think about that, because again, we talk about perspective. Like, perspective is key in so many different things. Why are you worrying, right? And so I want to kind of go to examples in text, biblical text, and I want to bring it to, like, today, right? So everybody would be like, okay, well, what Jesus do? I want to be a disciple like him. I want to do what Jesus is doing. Like, that's like kind of like the lifestyle that you want to live, right? In a lot of cases. Other people is like, they think that they need to be on another level in order to start walking in that direction, which that's a big lie. You don't have to be. You want to start walking in that direction, right? No matter what, you want to start going in that direction. But ultimately, if he's the example, which he should be the example, if he's the example, we look at examples as to when there was storms. And when there were storms, he was resting. So there's perspective. The one that should be the example for us was resting. He was asleep. He was resting. He knew that the storm was going on, I'm sure. I mean, come on. He's God. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knows what's going to happen. So he is resting. He's sleeping, right? The one who has the ultimate connection with God is resting in the storm, in the middle of the storm. The ones who were following him but weren't quite understanding who he was yet, but they were following him and they believed in him the same way that many of us want to believe in him, right? Or do believe him and are trying. There's a difference when you really have a connection and you know him. And there's a difference when you are trying, right? Like, you're on the path, you're not quite there. He's sleeping. Everybody else is freaking out. I want you to think about that. He's asleep, not worried. He knows he's going to get from point A to point B. He knows what's going to happen in this event. Everybody else who's already seen the miracles are freaking out. These are people that used to walk together every day on the daily. They used to, live together, eat together, sleep together. Like, they were everywhere together, right? But the perspective was different. They seen all this stuff and they were still afraid. But the one who knew wasn't afraid. He knew what was going to go down. So why am I mentioning this? I mention this because whether this is your first storm or your 50th storm, your 50th storm,
it feels like more.
Or more.
Like more. On my
Some of y'all feel like you're getting little storms every day. You've survived all these storms, though. You might not be completely out, but notice all the storms you've been in and you survived them so far. But again, that goes back to perspective. A lot of times we start looking at the problem instead of the fact that we've been through the problem. We've been through numerous problems. We've been through numerous storms. And when the next storm comes, instead of focusing on, I got past the storm already and I can get past another one because I believe that God is in control, so I'm just going to rest, you start to believe that, I don't know what's going to happen. And you start to freak out. And you know what happens when you freak out? You don't rest. And when you don't rest, you're worn out. When you don't rest, you start working toward the solution. When God is handling the solution. Now, I'm not telling you to be completely hands off, but it's like, instead of being like, okay, hey, because that at least the disciples had, they asked him to do something. That's actually the third layer. So you have Christ, who has the connection with God direct, being God but being man. He's resting because he understands. Those that are with him are freaking out, but they're asking for the help. We've become the third breed. We believe that he's in control, but we freak out, and then we don't even ask for the help. We start panicking, not resting, and trying to fix it all by ourselves. It's like the waves are bringing the water in the boat, but you keep pedaling. You keep rowing. There's water in your boat. But instead of asking for the direction, you continue to be like, maybe if I can get through this faster, maybe if I can do this, maybe if I can do that. But you're not looking at the problem. You're not asking for direction in terms of the problem. And then at the end of the whole thing, you feel worn out, which I know some of us get like small storms, like little by little, it's one storm after another, maybe you get a little bit of a break. But I don't know how many of you guys have been in a storm And it's like
Back
the
to
storm,
back.
back to back to back to back to back to
Back to
back to back. It's like they're never ending. If you don't rest in one storm, you're going to be worn out for the next storm. And if your reaction is the same, you're going to be more worn out for the next one. That's why some of us are feeling completely worn out. Why you think the enemy's continuing to throw you storms? Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we're going into the storms ourselves.
every time.
We have to be honest. There's times that because we didn't ask for the direction to begin with, we're going into a storm that's somewhere that we were never asked to go. And then we freak out because we're now in the storm. See, that's why it's so key to ask for direction and everything, right? To go and seek direction and everything. Because when you seek the direction and you feel like God is taking you somewhere, and you know, you and me have had this conversation a number of different times over the last couple of years, especially. There are decisions that have been made that, what do I always tell you? Wherever you find peace, that's where God is in that decision. So it might not seem like the best decision, but if you find peace there and you feel that God is sending you in that direction, don't worry. And you'll hear the storm of criticism, maybe, and the storm of doubt and the storm of a bunch of other things that want to tell you, don't go that way. But at the same time, Jesus was saying, yo, let's go to this place, right? I have somebody to go meet across across the sea. I've got somebody I've got to go, I've got to go handle this over here though. Bro, so he would even receive that from the disciples. Why do you want to go over there? They don't want to hear from us. Do you know what these people do? Like, before even going into the storm, not knowing that there was a storm, he would hear about why not to go. But when you have connection and you ask for direction and you start going where you believe that you're being led to go and you have peace in that, you'll get the storm from people beforehand. But if you've got the conviction that I know where I need to go, you put that on mute and you keep going. And then you might hit a storm of some other stuff along the way. But when you have the conviction of the peace that you know where you're going, that will not deter you and you'll continue to go. The problem is most of us are not asking for direction. So when we don't ask for direction, we don't even know if we have peace going in the direction or the decision that we're taking. And because you don't have that conviction of what you need to do, you freak out even more. And then that's where we hit the next level down. What kind of disciple are you? The kind that asks for the help and now asks for the direction and now asks for God to do something? Or are you even at that point trying to ask, like, yo, what do you want to do? Like, help me. I need help. Tell me what to do. Do I need to go back? Can you handle this? Like, do something. But a lot of us continue to row that boat. And you got to ask yourself, why are you continuing to row that boat? Like, for what reason? And sometimes, I think it's beautiful. Sometimes Jesus will calm the storm, like he did in one example. Other times he'll stop the waves and everything, but then he'll ask you to do something crazy, like come walk on the water with me, which sounds even crazier than being in the storm. And it doesn't make sense, but you have to have faith to do it. And you go and you do it. But there's a whole gang of people that didn't even think to believe that they could do that. You know what I'm saying? So what do I mean by that? Sometimes you might be going in the direction that God wants to take you. And after you freaked out and you see that he calms everything, he might be like, I needed to get your attention. Now I want you to go this way. And some will trust and continue to go where they need to go. And you got a whole gang of people that still won't ask for the direction. guess what's going to happen the next storm? They're going to freak out too again and again and again and again, each and every time. So again, it's all a matter of perspective.
I like the fact. I want to go ahead and touch a few points that you made there. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
I want to go ahead and remind everyone that we do not discuss the live or the topic before we get on. So they're about to see and witness like how we're aligned when we speak, whenever we get on Thursdays. So I just want to remind everyone, the storms, the people, and time in our lives. There's a reason why all that is connected on the topic. Now, what will you do? How will you react during the storm you're experiencing, right? Are you going to be a warrior in your situations, or are you going to be a worrier? Right? Are you gonna fight through? Are you gonna break through? Or are you gonna struggle, worry, and quit on yourself? Quit on the situation, right? That's something that I want everyone to sink in. Let that sink in real quick. If you think about it, whenever we start worrying about a situation, that means that you have no faith. That means that you really don't believe in you. And it's okay, because we've all been there. We've all been there, right? What helps us is having these conversations, having someone to guide you, having someone to give you the advice, right? Having someone that you can talk to, someone with wisdom, someone who's gone through it, that can actually help you, can take you out of the situation, right? They can actually lead the way. They can lead the way, but it's up to you if you want to get out of the situation. Really, think about it. There's been situations in my life where I was getting the advice, but I wasn't hearing it. It went in one ear and out the other. And guess what? That's when I had to learn the hard way, which is why with that specific situation, multiple storms came after. Why? Because of my perspective. Why? Because of my reaction, my responses. It was the focus that I was giving it. In fact, it was, I can even say at a young age, we would think, this cannot happen to me, or all right, this is happening, but this won't be for long, for whatever reason. And then when you notice you're stuck deep in that situation, you're like, now what should I do? You commit more and more mistakes as you go. Instead of making a situation better, you're making it worse. Right? I've been there many a times, plenty of times.
Yep.
Many times we are the ones that cause more storms, and some things we worsen. I love something that you brought up, Big Bro, about the storm of doubt and all the other storms, right? Why did I add people onto the title? Sometimes it's not us. It may be someone else who's causing these storms, who's bringing these storms on us. Whatever it is that affected them, they're bringing it on into your life, on or into your life. Sometimes we deal with the unnecessary. Sometimes we are with people who are broken. Sometimes we're with people who fail to heal or don't focus on healing, right? So now what happens when you're with someone who's broken and it's not willing to change because that's who they are, or they fail to admit and accept, I have a problem and I need to fix it because I don't want you to have the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I added people onto the title, onto the topic. Storms don't happen just because they happen. Storms don't happen just because of the decisions that we've made upon ourselves, I mean. But now, are you willing, after everything that was said now, are you willing to admit and accept that even though it's not you the problem, and it's your partner, or it's the people you hang around with, or it's the people that you just discuss occasionally, that you talk, and they're actually no good for you, giving you the wrong advice, maybe bad influence, whatever it is. Think about that. Are you willing to make that change? Are you willing to eliminate all the negative, all the bad? And I'm talking about people. I'm talking about habits. I'm talking about even your workplace. Because sometimes that does it to you. Sometimes we're forced to settle for less because where else am I going to go? What else am I going to do? Maybe you don't want to take a pay cut. Maybe you don't want to start all over in a place because you remember how uncomfortable it was to meet new people, to step into an office where you don't know who's who. But because you know your job like the back of your hand, you know your daily task, you would rather stay in the same place. So now you're running in place, but you're not giving yourself the opportunity somewhere else where you may grow. And when I say you're not giving yourself the opportunity somewhere else, I just finished talking about the workplace, but what about someone who you deserve or someone who deserves you? Let that sink in. Let that sink in.
Man, you know, something that you said, I love the word eliminate. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the reason why. You have to think every storm that you go through has a purpose, right? Every storm has a purpose. Every difficulty has a reason. That's why, you know, that scripture is so key that says, everything works for the good of those who love him, right? According to his purpose for them. Everything has a purpose. Every storm, every difficulty has a purpose to work toward your purpose for your good, right? Sometimes if the storm doesn't come, you won't let go of the things that you need to let go of. You don't start moving in the direction that you need to move in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't start doing the things that you're doing. I can tell you that there's a lot of people who, when things get difficult, let's say financially, that's when all of a sudden they really get on their hustle. They get on the real grind mode. They start finding different ways to hustle here and there. It's like something inside of them gets activated to make it happen. But a lot of times they might just stay stagnant in a spot because it's like, I'm okay. There's nothing. And it's like, sometimes you need to be moved. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you need to go in a direction, but you're not going in the direction that God is calling you to do or to go in. So what happens is he needs to move you. So there are good storms and there's bad storms. Okay. There's storms that you cause yourself because you don't ask for the direction. We talk about wrong place, wrong time, right? You end up stuck somewhere or with people that is not where you need to be. Maybe it's the wrong job. Maybe it's the wrong relationship. Maybe it's the wrong friends. Maybe all these different things, right? And it's not the situation that you're supposed to be in. And it's like you won't get the hint, but at the same time, because you're afraid to step out, you're afraid to leave those friends, you're afraid to leave that job, you're afraid to step out in faith, you're afraid to do this, you're afraid to do that. And some of y'all know what I'm talking about, because for some of you guys, God has called you to do something, whether it has been, you've gotten a dream where God has given you direction, you've been praying, you've gotten the direction, somebody's prophesied something to you, you got the direction, you heard a preach, you got the direction, so many different, you read a book, so, you read the word, whatever, something came to you and God obviously speaks to you and gives you in a direction and you're like, yeah, I have a feeling that this is what I need to do, but I'm not ready to do it yet. And you keep pushing it off. I need to eliminate these friends. They're not good for me. I keep pushing it off. Why? I don't want to hurt their feelings. I need to leave that job. That job is a toxic environment, but I won't leave it because I don't want to let them down. And on top of that, I'm afraid to step out, whether it's to go find a new job, whether it's to start a new business, whatever it is that you feel like is the direction that you needed to go, you won't do it because you have a fear. You don't have the faith that you need to go and walk because it's now going to take you out of a comfort zone. And it's for a moment potentially going to make you look like the bad guy to somebody. But if God is calling you to go in a certain direction, you're not the bad guy, because you can't be the bad guy if you're going where you're being called to go. Unfortunately, it's not going to be going along with popular opinion. But guess what? most of where God calls you to go is not popular opinion. A lot of times you look dumb because it sounds like a foolish decision. If you got a super stable job and all of a sudden God asks you, yo, leave that job and go open this business, you've been feeling that you need to do that. You don't do it, but you're there thinking about it. It seems like a foolish decision because I've been working at this job 5 years. This is stability. I'm good, especially right now in the middle of a pandemic. I shouldn't be leaving. But if he's calling you to go, do you not have faith that he's going to take care of you in that? Because now you got to ask yourself the question. You're being asked to move and you don't move.
You know why?
Do you not have faith? You see what I'm saying? Sometimes this. Again, we go back to the friends or even the relationship. You don't want to move from the relationship, or you don't want to move from the friendship because you don't want to hurt the feelings, or because you have the stability of the benefits of that friendship or the stability of the benefits of that relationship. You're afraid to step out because what happens if I hurt them? What happens if I step out on my own? What happens? Maybe I'll never find another relationship, because people get into that mode. But if you know that you're being called to go that way, it doesn't matter what a million people tell you. Their opinion doesn't matter. You're being given the direction to go. So if you're not making the decision that you need to make, like you're not moving forward in it, now you got to analyze the other part of that question. Are you not doing it because you don't feel that that's where you need to go? Or are you not doing it because you don't have the faith to go the direction that you need to go? And what will happen is, if you don't move where God wants you to go, God will bring the storm because you have to move. He'll wait for you for some time. But when it gets to the point of like, I need you to start doing this because I have plans, if you don't move, God will move you. God will bring you discomfort. It could be all of a sudden just turnover happening in the job, and people are getting laid off, and this is happening and that's happening, and it's a toxic work environment, and this coworker is getting on your nerves, and this new one that came is a problem, and all these things start to change, and you're not happy, and you don't know what's going on, and you're feeling stressed, and then all of a sudden somebody has to come lay you off because you didn't walk in the direction of the decision that you were given, the direction that you were given 2 years ago.
You would have been better off going with the first, which is walk away.
He's going to give you provision along the way anyway. But sometimes you suffer through the storm because you don't have the faith to walk in that direction. So it's like, is it because you want to do it yourself? Again, we go back to wearing yourself out. Or do you not have the faith that he's going to take care of you? Because in that case, has he not taken care of you so far? So where is the issue? So you have to understand, sometimes the storm is you're in the relationships, you're in the places, you're doing the things that that's not where he wants you. And you're choosing to be there.
Since we're on that topic, there's a question that I have here, which we'll keep anonymous. It was sent over. Go ahead. When is divorcing okay? Is it okay if that is your storm constantly?
That's a little bit of a tricky one, and I'm going to give you a few different reasons why. It's something that you have to go ahead and you have to analyze everything. You really have to analyze everything. You have to ask God for direction.
Keyword, everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Because here's the reason why. Sometimes people will go and they'll ask for the divorce because they're just, it doesn't feel like it did in the beginning. I didn't think that this would be what it was going to be like. Guess what? When you get married, things change. When you get married, it's way different when you're living on your own, and then all of a sudden you move in together, and then that changes when you have kids, if you have kids, and you get things in the job. A lot of different things start to happen in your life. And you got to continue to go with the change, right? So that's not a reason for you to be like, oh, I'm just going to pack up and leave. Because honestly, that's a thing of like, you just want to quit when things are difficult. and when things are good, you're good. Doesn't work that way. There's going to be good times and there's going to be bad times. That's why we got better or worse, right? However, there are exceptions. There are exceptions. Case in point, if the spouse is cheating, there's biblical reference in a number of different places that, you got legal right by God, get out. That's what you want to do, get out. Get out. Go ahead, get out.
You don't have to deal with that.
You don't have to deal with that. On the flip side, you'll have, I'm just going to say spouses because a lot of times people will say that this is the men, but in reality, I've seen this both sides, right? I've seen this on both sides. You'll have spouses that constantly will disrespect the other spouse. And I'm not talking about abuse. Mind you, abuse is another thing. So trust me, I know that
it happens various ways.
I know, right. Because there's physical abuse, there's mental abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's all that kind of stuff. So believe me, if you're undergoing abuse, that's also another thing that you don't have to deal with, and it's going to go kind of hand in hand with what I'm about to mention right now, okay? That's an out as well, for the reason that I'm going to give you in this next point. There are also people that maybe it's not necessarily abuse, but they'll purposely be doing things to disrespect the marriage. Maybe it's not necessarily abuse, but it's a constant comment. It's a constant this, it's a constant that. It's a constant not taking care of your spouse and all that stuff. Here's the deal. A lot of people, unfortunately, try to go with the whole thing of like, wives, submit to your husbands, blah, 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 right? Yes, that's true. But at the same time, people like to focus on the word where it benefits them. They don't look at the opposite side, because you'll have guys that will be like, wives, submit to your husband. Yeah, so that means you must do everything that I want you to do. So if I'm the man of the house, I'm the husband. You need to listen to everything that I do, everything that I say, and that's their line. Hold up, because at the same time, Jesus says, husbands, you need to love your wives like Jesus Christ loves the church. So Jesus, loving the church, wants the best for the church, is trying to help the church build up, wants the church to be redeemed. Look at the blessings that I have for you. Receive what I have for you. Come on. Christ loved the church. He loves the church. It's a consistent love. It's a passionate love. Like, I want the best. Like, even if you don't understand it, I want the best. I want the best. I want the best. And people forget that part. And that's something that really goes both ways. You see what I'm saying? So that becomes very complicated, because you have a number of wives that don't submit to their husbands. And again, I'm not saying that you have to do everything that the husband says, because a husband that loves you is not going to try to do a bunch of stuff. Is not going to have you try to do a bunch of stuff that he wants you to do, like in a macho kind of way. He wants you to do things because it's for the betterment of you. You see what I'm saying? And some people really try to take that and push that as the agenda. And sometimes then that falls into the abusive part of it, where it's like you deal with the physical, verbal, mental abuse. That's not the spouse loving you like Christ loved the church.
And I say mental, emotional abuse can sometimes be worse
than physical.
Physical over everything. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it can be a lot worse because it's more long term.
And unfortunately, you have people that fall into that, and they continue to stay in the relationship because they're like, oh, I need to continue to deal with that. I need to continue to take that abuse. I need to continue to take all this different kind of abuse. And it's like, yeah, but they're not loving you like Christ loves the church, though. You know what I'm saying? Now, that's not to say that you're going to have bad seasons. That's not to say that, you can, that you just, the moment that you see a bad season, a storm, right? We're talking about storms. Oh, I'm out. Because trust me, there's a bunch of people that are like that. Mm-hmm. I don't have to deal with this anymore. I'm out.
And a lot of them use it as an excuse, an easy way out. Instead of them having to explain themselves, they just walk off.
Because there you need to start looking at it again from the perspective of love your spouse like Christ loved the church. Because if that was the case, how many times would God give up on you and leave you? You see what I'm saying? When things are difficult, everybody has a bad moment. There's always difficulties. God never leaves you. So why would you leave the spouse in those cases? So that's why you need to look at everything as a whole and see if people are falling under that criteria. Because in reality, what that person might need is as a marriage, as a couple, the support of one another to help build each other up, because that's what Christ is trying to do with you, is build you up. But there's definitely people that pass that line where it's now like you're breaking code right there. You know what I'm saying? And at that point, you know, you got the reason to do it. Now, again, if you make the mistake, and so please understand this, because you have people that guilt trip themselves for the rest of their lives. If you make the mistake to end a marriage incorrectly, right? Where it's like, unfortunately, you let yourself be talked into it by friends, by family. And it's like down the road, you kind of feel guilt tripped that you did it. I do want to also put this to you. That doesn't mean that you're irredeemable. Get that through your head. If you've undergone a divorce and you're like, man, I really messed up, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, that doesn't make you irredeemable. Because what some people start to think is that disqualifies you from the blessings that God has for you. No, that's a moment in which you come and you say, yo, God, I messed up. I didn't even ask you for direction in this. I didn't ask what you wanted to do. I didn't ask how, you know, if you wanted to be in this marriage. Because, bro, most marriages, want to know what the problem is in the marriage? God's not in the marriage. God's not in the center of the marriage. There's no direction. Because if there was direction, husbands would be better to their wives and wives would be better to their husbands. You know what I'm saying? But there's not that. And so that's why it's very complicated. But know that if you do make that decision, know that that does not disqualify you from anything that God has for you. You just need to spend some time asking God for revelation, just like you should with anything in your life. Where have I gone wrong? Because a lot of times it will reveal to you things that you knew about, but a lot of things that you didn't know about. And you'll be like, wow, yo, I just had this revelation of this stuff. Yo, my bad, God, like that. I wasn't meaning it. And that's what he's looking for, is just, hey, it's all good. You know, the past is the past. Let's work toward the future. But the problem is when you don't recognize that, that's another danger. When you don't recognize that you don't put God in the middle of it, you might be bound to repeat the same mistake. That's why you've got certain, you know, some people that can't hold a job. Every job is the same thing. People complaining about the same, you know, they're always complaining about the same stuff. You never stop and analyze if you were the problem. You end marriages or relationships over and over and over and over and over and over again. And a lot of times it's for the same reason. This person didn't understand me. They were always asking for too much. They didn't change. They didn't visit. Hold up, pump the brakes. At some point, don't you want to stop and think what's going on? That this is a repetitive, you know, history continues to repeat itself. I was mentioning to somebody today, sometimes you got to think, if it's over and over and over again, either you have terrible luck that it's always the same thing, or you might be the problem. And you got to, again, that's analyzing, asking for a revelation on, yo, what do I need to change about me? Because every day we can change stuff, and a lot of people are not believing that there's anything that they need to change about themselves, especially right now in this point in time that we're in, where a lot of people, you know, on social media, in the news media, everywhere, are telling you to go for yours, to focus on, you know, you need to get yours. You need to do, you know, you need to do you and all this other stuff, which causes a lot of, you know, toxic relationships in a number of different areas of your life, because the focus is me. What can I get? I need to get this. It's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. And the
You
other people are receiving, it's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. And if this person is all about me and this person's all about me
you
and
read my
nobody's
mind.
looking one over, over the other, that's where we get back to the whole thing. Christ loving the church. He never says it's all about me. He says, focus on me because I have something better for you. So it's like, I want you to receive something. This is about us. I get the worship. I get the attention. I get the praise, but I have this for you. It's a give and take. It goes both ways.
We're
But when
living in
it's
a
me and
world.
me,
We're living in a world, especially this generation, where it's a lot of selfish taking place.
absolutely.
A lot of people who are selfish. Now, there's a difference between being selfish and self-love, right? And there are many things that you can be selfish in, but there's a lot of people being selfish in the wrong ways,
Yeah.
which is very critical. And I hope that wasn't too confusing, and I hope everyone's understanding when I said what I said there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add on to that question that person asked, because it's a tough situation. It's very sensitive, and you have to really analyze the whole situation. Look
Right.
at what it is that's causing you to even think about doing it. Uh, how selfish is your partner? Uh, how aware is he about you, about your household, about family in general, the kids, if there's kids involved? What exactly is taking place? You have to analyze all that. Now, when a divorce takes place, especially when you have kids, this is a major separation. It's gonna affect you in a way. Who knows if it's gonna affect the other party, but the children for sure. You know, and I think that's one of the things that makes it hard for someone in that situation to move forward. However, there's people that do it and they don't even think about it and bounce. And when I say bounce, like, they forget that there are kids involved. They don't care the emotional state that they're going to be in, mental state, um, and they just go ahead and go on with their life, create another one, right? Because they feel like they have options. But
Yep.
reality, there's a lot of people that do that, and they fall in a worse situation, like into a worse uh, situation that they were in before, because of their selfish way of thinking, because of the actions that they took. Now, what am I trying to say in general? Analyze the situation. Um, Maybe get a therapist, that you guys can discuss. Maybe there's something that's not being said, either on your end or on their end. Um, and are they cheating? Have they cheated? Um, are they abusing you mentally, emotionally, physically, financially? Is it causing you to doubt you? Is it causing you to perform at your job? Is it causing you to have less patience with your kids, where because you're doing so much, you're working hard, and you go home and cook or clean, and you're over here attending to your children, and now you don't have patience because you don't have the support from your partner. Everything is supposed to be mutual, 50-50, right? If there's so much that you're doing, your partner has to be considerate and say, no, no, you know what, baby, let me go ahead and help you out because you're doing a little too much. I know how it feels to be overwhelmed. I know how it feels to not have time for me. So I feel like we need time for us. And time
Yep.
for us means us like a family. And you know what? Um, Go ahead and step out and go for a walk. You got a dog? Take the dog for a walk. You know what I mean? They're being considerate. But if you're not having these type of situations or these type of conversations, and it's causing your relationship to get a lot worse, it's only a matter of time when you're actually forced to get divorced. Damn, that rhyme. Forced to get divorced. But you get the point. It's really critical, there's no right or wrong answer. Go with what you're feeling. You know your situation more than we do. We'll be here if there's anything you want to discuss any further. I appreciate the
Absolutely.
fact that you are open about it, and you know, even though we're keeping it anonymous, that you trust us to even bring that up, which is very personal. So just remember this: look at yourself in the mirror, close your eyes, and aside from praying, of course, you know, always pray for everything in your life. But really look at you. You're valuable. You know what I mean? The value. You are of value. You know, and there's always someone out there that would appreciate you, that can help you out, whether it's in a relationship or someone that really wants, that has good intentions for you. Be very careful who you're discussing your issues with, because that's another thing. You don't want someone that's giving you bad advice, causing you to think a certain way or to make a decision that maybe it would have been best to go to a therapist or to discuss it with someone who's more neutral than picking sides, right? Because sometimes, you know, friends will do that, family, obviously, you know, they hurt when you're hurt and they want the best for you. But sometimes the advices you might be receiving, they may fail to look at both sides of the story, right?
Yeah.
So that's really something to think about. And speaking of, going back to what I said about the whole thing with the generation that we're living in, this is a prime example. Because I'm even speaking from experience. We have to teach our children self-love. Like, it's critical now, because we don't want our children to be hurt. Eventually they are, right? But it's their perspective. It's how they manage that situation. It's like, if we prepare them now for situations like that or whatever it is, they won't have to deal with it the same way we had to experience it.
That's right.
You know, to that degree, because it's like, oh man, I remember when mom and dad spoke to me about this. This doesn't surprise me. But the first thing that's going to click on their mind is, I'm of value. You know, the same way I treat others, I want to be treated. And I know there's someone out there for me. You know, and again, this is not always relationship. This is friendships. Just relationships in general. They have to become more aware of it.
Yeah.
So definitely.
And I think we see Olga there, who wrote The American Way, and it's interesting because, remember, what's something that I've mentioned for the last 2 weeks. You had the American dream, and that American dream has turned into the American nightmare. Because the American dream before was, you know, you go to school, you have a family, you have the kids, you got the house, you got the dog, you got like all that stuff, right? And it was like, notice, it was focused on that kind of like family nucleus that you would have. Well, right now, you know, like you said, it's changed, and it's mostly about me, like what I can get, you know, which, like you said, that's not self-love. That's selfish. There's a difference. You made a great point. Self-love is one thing that you need to have, but you need to differentiate that from selfishness, because the selfishness makes you think it's all about you, which is unfortunately what the enemy is trying to get everybody to believe right now in this current day and age. And it's everywhere. That's the whole reason people look for likes and want to be influencers and all that other stuff, because they want it to be about them. They want the focus on them. It's not about how other people can be blessed. It's about them, right? That's ultimately what it ends up being about. And so that's what leads to the American nightmare, because that American nightmare ultimately turns into the enemy wanting to destroy the family. And believe me, when the enemy wants to destroy the family, he will use anybody that he can to try and destroy it. And that's why you need to be very careful, because the people that he will use to try and influence you the most might be the people closest to you, the people that you have the most confidence in, you know. And if there's not that alignment there with God, believe me, that's why you need to be very careful. Like, yo, maybe I need to go and reach out to a pastor. Maybe I need to go reach out to a Christian therapist, because there are Christian therapists. You know what I'm saying? And those Christian therapists will be direct on like, yo, this is what you need to do looking out for your mental health, right? Or for your relationship health. There's so many different things there. So you want to believe, you want to make sure that you're getting that direction, or that you are asking for God to take you to the direction of who he wants to speak through to help you in that. But there's a lot of selfishness, and we got a lot of people going into these relationships or into these marriages with one person, this is what I want out of it. The other person, this is what I want out of it. And a lot of times, if you really pay attention, you can see those conflicts before you even get married. But some people don't, again, maybe because of the comfort level that they have, the fear of being alone.
Yeah.
God starts giving you direction and you don't want to take it. And then you're stuck in the storm of that marriage.
And that's another thing. It's a selection, that's another thing. What that I wanted to add to what you said about 10 minutes ago. It's, sometimes we are the problems and we fail to admit it, or we fail to recognize it. Sometimes we can't see it unless someone else is telling us, or we learn the hard way. It's like, why is this happening to me? And then it clicks like, wait, I'm the problem. Very rare, right? But it happens. Now, when it comes to the people you're selecting as your partner, sometimes you look for the people or the partners that you have in the wrong places. You're not going to find them in a club. You're not going to find them in a lounge. You're not
in most cases, nah.
At a barbecue. You never know where you would find them, just that the chances are very low for them to be the one, the person that's going to be compatible, vice versa. Right. So I wanted to add that 10 minutes ago. There was something else, man, that I wanted to say, because there's so much that's just going through my mind right now. There was something else that I wanted to add on.
While you're thinking about that, I just want to add one quick little point. You made mention of the damage could be to the person, can be to the spouse, can be to the kids. I want you to think about the repercussions of why, it's so important to ask for the direction, right? Because if you don't ask for the direction, it's not just it's not just maybe you yourself, it's not just your spouse, it's not just the kids. Sometimes it could be generational. The grandkids will feel it later. The great grandkids will feel it later.
Thank you.
And you start to create a domino effect because you made a decision that was not necessarily the decision that God wanted you to make. And then you get real comfortable. Again, you can ask for God to give you the direction, right? After the fact, after you messed up, so that you can, be like, yo, that's my bad, and get right. But when you messed up, not only do you get right with God on it, but that's now where you can go and say, you know what, if this was the wrong direction, I got to look at where the repercussions might be so I can pray for those repercussions. So God can make sure to work in that area too. And that's something a lot of people don't do because, again, the focus is on yourself. It's not focusing on you focus on yourself, or you focus on what you can see, but you don't focus on what might be impacted later.
Another thing is some people compete, right? And aside from competing, some people, when they get the questions like, hey, why don't you have kids yet? Or, like, what's going on? Why haven't you met someone by now? You know what I mean? You're cute, you're handsome, whatever it is. Sometimes these type of conversations are what makes us fall into situations, right? It's like, oh man, the next time I get together with this person, what am I going to say? No again? I haven't met someone. Are they going to think I have problems or whatever it is? Or are they going to think this? Are they going to think that? And we've mentioned in multiple episodes, quit thinking about what other people are thinking about you. At the end of the day, you live your life. At the end of the day, you focus on you.
Facts.
And before I continue, I'm sorry, Boom Hair Studio, I apologize. What's the topic about? Storms, the people, and the time in our lives. The storms, the people, and time in our lives is the topic. You really have to focus on you. You have to focus on you, because if you think about, half my life was based on what people were thinking about me. And that caused so much delay in my life because I was so worried about oh, what's going to be the career? You know, what is it that what's going to be my major in school? What is it that I want to do that's going to blow people's mind? You know, all right, I want to become a cop. And this is true story. I'm not making this up. You know, I wanted to do criminal justice. Now, some of it did have to do that. Growing up, I was watching the Discovery Channel almost all the time, you know, investigation documentaries and stuff like that. And I found something interesting. But as I was growing up and I was learning more and I was out there, I felt like I had the entrepreneurship in me. Like it was just something, how can I describe it? Every time I would work for someone, I wouldn't last more than a year or two at a job. And why is that? It was something else that I had in me. You know, I didn't know how I was going to start. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but it was that thought in my mind to work for yourself, to sell an item. And I didn't even know what the item was. It was just sell. But then as I was learning more about family, I'm like, man, grandma was a damn good entrepreneur for a while, you know, independently. And look at all the houses she ended up buying in the Dominican Republic, the investments she made in general, bought 2 school buses. Was it 1 or 2?
I think it was 2.
I think it was 2. It was 2 school buses. It was so much that she did. It was in my blood. But now I've had all these delays because I wasn't sure. And, you know, are my parents going to be proud if I tell them, no, I'm not going to go to school? If I stand up for myself and tell them, I will not be going to school, I want to go ahead and be on my own. I want to go ahead and try this. I want to go ahead and open up a clothing brand. I want to go ahead and sell hot dogs. I want to go ahead and, you know, start selling ice cream, whatever, in entrepreneurship, a business owner. And I've learned so much from then that it was just like, man, I could have been doing this a long time ago. But you know what? I can't regret it. I can't regret it. I look at it now and I'm like, hey, what better times than now with all the access that we have? Thank God for technology, right? And it's never too late. I feel like it's never too late. And it's something that we have to show our kids now. With that being said, one thing that I've learned from that is like, you know what? Whatever I don't have a chance to do, I'm going to make sure I do it for my daughter. I'm going to make sure that she won't have to depend on a 401k. I'm going to make sure that she feels comfortable. If I tell her, you know what, education is good, there's a lot of things that you can learn from it because it does open your mind, right? But how about we do it the smart way? Let's go for scholarships to the point where you don't have to have any student loans, any debt. How about, you know, financial assistance? Just finding a way for them not to suffer the way we do with debt. Finding if they even like that route. I want to go. Do you want to go to school or do you want to start your own business? You know, and just give them a little jump start. They won't have to depend on a 401k. Go ahead and invest in a Roth IRA, where that's going to build up just like a 401k, except they're on their own. You know, so it's something that we really have to think about. How do you resolve this storm in the life? Well, it depends what storms, because everyone has a different storm that they're dealing with. But again, as I mentioned before, it was how we react to it, how we respond to that storm, whatever it is. And I don't like to say that there's storms that are minor and major, because it really depends on the person's perspective. It really depends on the person's tolerance. Everyone has a different level of tolerance, a different level of patience. Something that's small to me may be major to you, or vice versa. Continuing from where we left off, Big Bro, how we were talking about the people, right? Don't let people plant seeds of doubt in your life. Don't let people set limitations in your life, right? And this goes all the way from divorce, all the way from, you know, even if you're not dealing with divorce and, you know, you're just having slight issues with your partner, you know, life isn't perfect. Relationships aren't perfect, right? But to a certain degree, there has to be respect. You have to be valued, you know? Respect and value, I think, is like the most important thing in a relationship, right? The love, the care, mutuality, right? It has to be mutual, as I mentioned before, 50-50. We have to be there for each other. You know, if at any point I see that you're breaking down, you're overwhelmed, I got to make sure that you're stable mentally. I got to make sure that I got to remind you, you know, like, listen, you're doing a lot, and I can't believe how much you do for us. Oh, I can't believe how, you know, you do all the cooking, all the cleaning, and still managing to show up to work. And when you come home, you still have the same energy, the same intentions for your family. Recognition, you know, you have to receive that from your partner. And sometimes a lot of people don't like to communicate it, but there are other gestures, you know. There are other gestures and ways for you to show love and appreciation. There are ways to show it. And if you're not receiving that from your partner, there's something wrong, you know. There's something wrong, and there's something that you have to do to try. I mean, not like take on the responsibility to fix the situation. There's something that you have to bring up in conversation to wake up the other person. Hey, what's going on? Like, why are you treating me like this? Why are you disrespecting me? Now, when it comes to cheating, that's a whole different story. That's a whole different story. And guess what you need to do? You gotta respect yourself. You gotta continue to love you. You can't be doubting you because of an action someone else, because of something someone else did, the action they took, the disrespect. You know, you can't doubt you. You got to keep going with life. And you know what? If your choice is to continue with that person, go right ahead. But you got to express it, and you got to make it clear. I will not accept this. And believe me, I won't be here if this ever happens again. I won't be here if you even think about doing such thing. I am not going, I can forgive, but I'm not going to forget. And I don't have to deal with that. I can forgive you and walk away. I can forgive you and walk away. So sometimes there's limitations on our life because of the things that we have to deal with coming from the other party, from your partner, right? Sometimes it may be coming from us. Maybe we're the problem. But as long as we accept it and we try and fix it, whatever that problem is, alcoholism, are you abusing substance? Are you a workaholic to the point where you're forgetting about your family? Because, you know, there's sacrifices that we make in life. And there's sacrifices, especially in these times, where, you know what, but have that communication. You know what, you know, things are going to get real rough here in the next few months, the next few years. And I think this is what we should do. But you know what, since I have to sacrifice these 2 months, 3 months, let's make sure we take a vacation after this. How are you willing to take this? Communication is everything.
Absolutely.
As long as you communicate. Now, you might not have control of what happens to you, but you do have control how you respond or react, right? I want to, after I say this part right here, start being protective over your life, soul, mind, and ears. Something that I wanted to bring up when we received that question. We have to be very careful. We've mentioned this in the early episodes when we first started about social media. We have to be very careful with the type of discussions that the men are having with their boys or the girls are having with their homegirls, because a lot of comparisons happen sometimes and you don't even notice it. Comparing your life, you know, how's your sex life? How's your party life? Do you have time for yourself? How many vacations have you taken this year? Where has he or she taken you? Oh, you went to Mexico? I went to Dubai. Oh, you went to DR? I went to Europe. Listen, a vacation is a vacation. I shouldn't be comparing my vacation to yours. Because either way, I jump on a plane and I get out of here and I'm disconnecting. Now, what does social media have to do? You see the struggle that you have in your household or that you're having between you and your partner. And you're over here watching a couple with Colgate smiles, right, on a beach, sipping on a pina colada or on a martini, whatever it is, and you're questioning yourself, what am I doing wrong? Why are we not there? And something that you should not do is compare yourself to any scenery that you come across social media, any caption, any meme, You know, because it's not all vacation. Sometimes you see, oh, a woman is supposed to be treated. We already know a woman's supposed to be treated godly. She's the queen, the same way a man is a king, right? Everyone's supposed to be treated equally, loving, caring, appreciation in general. Everyone's supposed to feel right, but just every situation is different. Now, if you don't have the communication, how do you expect for your situation to improve? If there's something that you want different in your life and you're with someone and you feel like you're doing it all on your own, what is that other person doing? Are they setting limits? They're draining. They're holding you back. Because believe me, when you have that conversation with your partner, you need someone to tell you, you know what, babe? I got us. Let's work towards it. Yeah, we deserve this vacation. Yeah, our child deserves this private school. Yeah, you know what? I don't need that Escalade. I'm okay with a Hyundai. Sometimes because of the conversations people have, they want to go ahead and put their life and their family's stability at risk because they want to look like they're doing big things, but they're really not doing big things. They want to look good, but their bank account is looking horrible. So what is that doing? That's causing a lot of issues in the households. You want to rock the Gucci slippers, but they do the same thing as Champion slippers, except they're putting more money in your bank account. They're giving you a possibility. Oh, you know what? We need more space. Okay, let me put my attire aside. All that taste that I have for fashion and clothing, let me set that aside. Let's focus on us. Let's make us good. I don't want to look good. I want to be good. Right? So that goes a long way. Big bro, I want to attach this that I wrote down to something that you mentioned 30 minutes ago, towards the beginning. It's not the water outside of the ship that sinks the ship. It's the water that gets into the ship that sinks the ship. I want everyone to let that sink in.
Wow.
I'm going to hand it over, bro. I'm going to hand it over. But I'm going to read that one more time. It's not the water outside of the ship that sinks the ship. It's the water that gets into the ship that sinks the ship. What are you tolerating? What are you allowing? Do you still have that friend that's really not taking you anywhere? Is that partner causing so many problems that you can't even think for yourself and can't even do for you or your family? Are you letting other people control your life? Are you letting other people control your thoughts? Are you allowing people to manipulate you over and over and over again? I want you to think about those nights that you shed tears. Those moments where you're alone or you step into the restroom, whether it's at work or at home, and you're just shedding tears because you don't want to show your weakness to whoever it is that's not appreciating you, whoever it is that's not helping you in the situation that you're currently in. Or you simply do it because you don't want your daughter or your son to see you in that state. Because that is going to affect them. They're going to question themselves. And when they see that, they're not going to understand it. They're not going to understand it. And you don't want them to learn that the hard way. Because it's okay to show emotions. But when it comes to a child, there's a time for that. There's a time for that. I'm going to read it one more time. It's not the water outside of the ship that sinks the ship. It's the water that gets into the ship that sinks the ship. And sometimes there's situations that are going to make you question those around you. Sometimes when we step into that overthinking mode, we're going to be thinking things that really don't exist. We're going to be thinking things that are really not that bad, right? Because you're thinking so much of the problem, you're failing to focus on the solution. So with that said, everyone in your boat is in ruin. Some are just drilling holes unknowingly at times. So now think about that. You're on a boat and there's people drilling holes, but start identifying who are the ones drilling the holes and who are the ones patching it up. Who's keeping your boat, you, and everything you hold with you afloat, up, above water? Safety. Who's giving you that safety? Who are the friends you have around you? Who's the partner that you have? How's your boss treating you at work? How's your coworkers treating you? Set limits. It's time for you to focus on you. Don't doubt you. Set limits. Set limits and improve your situation. Eliminate all the negative vibes. Eliminate all the negativity in general. You have to eliminate it, because you know what? If you don't have you, you don't have nothing in this world. If you're not good mentally, you're never going to be good financially, because you could be good financially. You could have a nice 100, 200, 300K, maybe 500K. But if you're not good mentally, what do you think you're going to do with that money? You might mishandle that money because you're not going to be in the right state of mind. You might create situations that's going to make you step into debt, or make you step into situations where your money is going to be drained because of the situation. So you always got to think about your situation up here. And what is that situation? Your mind. What is that situation? Your perspective. Your well-being in general. Got to keep it pushing, because we have a whole life ahead of us. You know, before we used to think, oh, you know, I got to have it figured out in my 20s, you know, because by my 30s, no, you have all the time in the world. And you have a lot of people in this world. You have people that you don't even know you're going to meet in the future. That's going to help you push to get onto the next level. Why do you think you're on this live right now? Why do you think you're on this live receiving this good message? Why do you think you're on a live every single week receiving these messages? Because this is what we need more of. This is what you've attracted into your life. You could be playing bingo right now. You could be playing Nintendo. You know what I mean? You could be watching novelas. You could be watching a series right now, The Walking Dead. What else is on TV? Because I don't even know what else is on TV nowadays, because I'm too focused on the platform. I'm too focused on running business. I'm too focused on making investments. I'm too focused. But you're here with us. And we're here uplifting each other, giving each other that inspiration, that extra push, that extra injection of patience, of faith, of love, of care. We're not there physically, but thank God for technology, we're able to do it virtually. And aside from the live, like I said, feel free to contact us anytime to DM. Those dark moments, we're open for it. We're ready for it. Because we go through it. We've been through it. Doesn't mean we're perfect. You know, so really, man, speaking of inspiration, I want to go ahead and say, don't let people kill your drive, kill your dreams, your inspiration, whatever it is that you want to get done, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, don't let people kill it. So again, protect you, protect your life, protect your mind, your ears, your soul. Put you first, right? Because there's nothing selfish about that. As long as you have good intentions for you and those around you, you're putting yourself first because you want good for everyone around you. Put you first. Careful with the music you listen to. That's another thing too that I wanted to mention a few minutes ago. It's the music that we're listening to that sometimes does affect our relationships, does affect our situation, does affect our grind, does affect our stability. Big bro, I think you're muted, man.
So check it out. Like in terms of the it's funny because we haven't talked about any of this, and we're on the same thing with the boat. And I actually have. I know you're talking about drilling the boat, but I'm going to give you from the perspective of having been in the boat. You know, a while back, I remember being in the boat. It was very wavy that day, and I remember there was a point in which the guy who was driving the boat, conducting the boat, because it was like a little motorboat, had to make sure, because it was very wavy, had to make sure to turn the boat a certain way so that water would not get in the boat, right? So essentially turn it a certain way and stop the boat. Notice sometimes you got to stop. You don't just keep going. You have to stop in order to kind of ride the wave out before you go and do it a different way. Number one, you needed to have the person that was going to know how to drive it. But then you had the people in the boat. And those people had to do their part. Their part meant make sure that you're staying still. Make sure we might need a certain amount of people on this side because of the waves. You don't want the boat to like tip over or nothing like that, you know. Different things that need to happen that the conductor knows about. But it also requires the cooperation of the people in the boat. So pay attention to that. You got these waves, maybe because of a storm, maybe it's just a windy day, whatever. You got those waves that are could throw you for a loop. You got somebody who's in charge. They know how to manage it. But then you got other people in there with you who have to do their part, right? Because if not, you're going to get water in the boat can turn over, a number of different things. And it's not that the conductor doesn't know what he's doing because he's given the instruction. But if people don't do their part, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Why am I mentioning that? I'm mentioning it because all this goes hand in hand with what you said. As you mentioned this, I was taken to a part that said, a part of the word that says, don't worry about anything, instead pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand, and his peace will guard your heart and your minds as you live in Christ Jesus. So right there, Corinne knows exactly where I'm going. God, Jesus is driving the boat.
Figured as soon as I read it, yep.
He's driving the boat. You know, this goes back to what the disciples did earlier, what I mentioned earlier. They told him to handle it, right? I'm sure that he went and...
What verse is that, big bro?
That is Philippians 4, 6 through 9 is where we're going to go. Philippians 4, 6 through 9. So, he's driving the boat. Everybody else, because they're his disciples, are paying attention. And they're doing the right thing. They're the ones asking for the help. They're following the instruction, right? This is why it is so important, like you said, to watch what's going on inside. Okay? Corinne, you mentioned something a little bit earlier. You mentioned in terms of the cheating, she was like, "Nuh-uh, that's the deal breaker. I don't want, I don't want those spirits," right? There's biblical verses that essentially talk about, when a man joins with a woman, that there's spiritual stuff that happens there. There's spiritual stuff that happens there. That exchange, you're going to end up bringing that in. So if you've been cheating, you're now bringing that into your marriage bed. You see what I'm saying? So again, you need to be very careful. If you're like, okay, God is calling me to fix it, believe me, God will fix that. But if God is not calling you to fix it, and it's like, yo, you know what? You got your way out. You need to be very careful. Because if you're like, no, but I'm afraid of being on my own or whatever, and God is not giving you that direction, you don't know what you're bringing in. But at that same time, you mentioned like the music. It's funny because I've been having this conversation with the youth that I pastor on Wednesdays, and one of the things that we've been talking about is there's another verse, and I don't have it here, but there's another verse that talks about like, you can do everything, but not everything is good for you, right? Because not everything is sinful. Right? A lot of people want to tell you watching this movie is sinful. Listening to this music is sinful. Looking at this person the wrong way is sinful. This is sinful. That's sinful. Stop. Pump the brakes. Because there's a bunch of stuff that biblically there's not anything that shows you that it's sinful. Right? The problem is not everything is good for you. Right? So why do I mention it? I know some people that have listened to Christian music, maybe they've been at church and they've seen things move, right? Where people haven't, kind of like what we're doing here, we haven't talked about it, but the Holy Spirit is guiding in the same direction.
Yeah.
That's in your marriage. If you put God in the middle, that's in your marriage, right? So even though each person's going through, the husband's going through his own thing, the wife is going through their own thing, they got God in the middle, there will be times that your husband or your wife doesn't want to share something because they're trying to maybe not have you worry or whatever. But that same Holy Spirit that's in both of you will kind of let you know, like indicate, yo, this person is suffering through some stuff right now. And that's why sometimes it's okay for you to pick up the slack, because if you know that your partner is suffering some stuff, you want to help to build them up. You know, you want to be there to handle it and then help to build them up. The Holy Spirit will reveal that to you. The same way the Holy Spirit reveals a number of different things. A lot of people have watched things like Elevation Worship, Maverick City and stuff like that. You'll see like all of a sudden there might be like a spontaneous worship or whatever, right? I gave a great example for those of y'all that listen to Christian music. Maybe have heard Elevation. There was a big song in 2020 when they dropped their album that was The Blessing. And I remember one time their pastor broke down how that song came to be. Everybody was ready to go. They had finished up and somebody just started, playing around. I think it was on the piano or something like that. They started playing something. That same Holy Spirit that was in that person playing, right, was in somebody else. And that pastor was receiving something. It was like, wait, I'm hearing this song. And it was like, the Lord bless you and keep you. And he started to get something. And then somebody else came in and started to go along with it. And then another one. And it's because the same Holy Spirit was there. So there was a move of the Spirit there, right? Why do I mention that? That doesn't just happen with godly things. That happens with things that are not godly. Case in point. Anybody that's ever seen a horror movie, right? This is not judgment. This is not judgment. But you got to stop for a second and you got to think. The same way that somebody can get inspiration from God for something that's like, wow, that's a blessing. People can get inspiration. Where do you think they get the inspiration for some of those things that happen in the horror movies? Some of the thing that happens in the music. Some of the thing that goes on in the art. Some of the thing that's in the TV show. All that stuff. It's like, I remember, and again, no judgment, because I listen to hip hop too. I try to lower how much like lately, but I remember like one time, and I seen the reel, it's come up on like my Facebook, of how one time Kanye came into the studio and played the H to the Izzo beat for Jay-Z. Mm-hmm. And Jay-Z's known to a lot of times not write down his stuff. And he goes one take. So he was there. You could see he's feeling something. He's feeling something. He's feeling something. And he goes and he's inspired by it. And I think the story goes that he wrote, he did the song one take. Boom. That was done. Right? Why do I mention that? People that are directors, filmmakers, they also go. They got to maybe go into a place to get the idea of how to bring something to life. They don't do that on their own. They don't do that on their own. They don't do that on their own because the person on the camera that's they're directing, but the person on the camera has got to get the angle that they want. The person doing the soundtrack has to get the perfect timing on the soundtrack, the perfect vibe to give the intended effect. The person in post-production has to get the perfect coloring. Everything's got to be perfect for the intended direction of the director to be seen on the screen so that you can feel what the director wants you to feel. A lot of those times, those people were in the same spirit. So why do I mention that? I mention that because people got to be receiving from somewhere sometimes to go to that dark place. So many times you go, yo, but there's no harm in doing that. Okay, if you're not asking for direction on what might be there, you can go into something blindsided, and you might receive something that you weren't even thinking about receiving because you're not paying attention to what's coming in your boat. You're like, oh, it's just the water. I'm just going on the water. Pay attention to what's going in your boat, though. Pay attention. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's the music. Sometimes it's a movie. Sometimes it's a novela. Sometimes it's a TV show. Sometimes it's the conversations that you're having. All these different things you don't know. You got to really be paying attention. I'm not telling you don't partake. I'm telling you keep a watchful eye in terms of what's coming in your boat, because it might not be good. You see what I'm saying? So when you're not mindful of it, things happen. I saw somebody that brought up a great point, that they were like, oh, all these dudes like Playboy Cardi that's got like the merch, that if you look at the merch, it's obviously going to a dark place. A lot of gothic and heavy metal and all these, they go to a place, and a lot of people will be like, oh, but they just do that for shock value. This person said, I'm not saying that they got a pact with Satan or nothing like that. I'm not going to judge them because maybe they don't. But he made a good point. He goes, you need to be careful, because if you play with the devil might play back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because you leave something open. You're not paying attention, but you're letting something into your boat. You feel me? You got to be very careful. You got to be very careful. So why do I mention this thing in Philippians? Because at the same time, you got to watch out for everything that's coming into your boat, including people. And that's why you need to look, and you need to don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. This goes back to asking for direction for everything. Why? Because if you tell God what you need, and you will thank him for all that he's done, right? Again, that's perspective. You're not worrying about the water that's coming in. You're worrying about the perspective of, I see this. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to ask God for the direction. He might ask you to take the water out. He might take the water out. He might tell you to do this. He might tell you to do that. He'll give you the direction. But what happens? You'll experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand, which, bro, you and I have been there. There's stuff that comes, storms that come, that I'm like, yo, I don't even know how I'm so peaceful now. Please don't think that we don't feel it. We feel it. There are times where I haven't wanted to get out of the bed, and I have to, push myself. God gives me that extra strength to get out of the bed and do it, because there's days you get hit so hard, you're dazed for a moment, and you're like, okay, but I got to get up. But the thing is that at some point you remember God's peace that exceeds anything that you can understand. And here's the key point. This is why you focus on you. This is why you need to make sure that you're getting that peace. His peace will guard your hearts and your minds. So when you have that peace, wherever there's peace, he's there, because he can't inhabit somewhere that's not peaceful. And when you have that peace, his peace guards your heart from that battle, and it guards your minds. It's going to guard all that stuff, right? But then it goes, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, and right, and pure, and lovely, and admirable. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting on practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the peace of God will be with you. Why is this so important? Because when you fix your thoughts on what's true, this is, again, why it's so important to try and have God in the center of your marriage and really everything, but have him definitely inside of your marriage, right? Because what happens is when you fix yourself on him, you're going to fix yourself on what's true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, admirable. That's how you're going to treat the person. And you're also not going to entertain all these other things that are trying to tell you right now, yo, you need to get this. I did these vacations. You need to do this. I upgraded my house. You need to do this. I got this whip. You need to do this. I got these Jordans. You need to do this. I got this merch. You need to do this. I got that. You need to do this. All these things that people will tell you, yo, I did it, so you should do it too. That you start to compare yourself with. You watch out to not bring that water in your boat, because those people are not following what the person that's the captain of the boat, that's driving the boat, is telling you to do. They're turning your boat in the way to let the water in, which eventually is either going to drown you or the wave is going to turn you over. And notice, it might not be because of you. It might be because those people are taking you away from the direction that you're being told to follow. And all of a sudden you flip, or all of a sudden the water comes in and it starts to sink the boat. You see what I'm saying? So what happens when you think of things that are excellent and worthy of praise? I think that's so key. Think about what's excellent and worthy of praise. You mentioned like, yo, maybe you don't get in the Mercedes, but maybe you get into the Hyundai. Yo, believe me, God can bless you with a great car. He blesses you with a Mercedes. I'm not knocking you for it, because I know that there's people that like to knock pastors and different people,
It's a necessity,
But the thing is it a necessity? Is it truly a blessing that you've received? Or is it something that you're trying to, to floss yourself? And you didn't ask for the direction, because here's the thing. Is that Mercedes really worthy of praise? Is that house that you need to be upgraded in really worthy of praise? Are those friends really worthy of praise? Are the material things that you want, are they worthy of praise? And on top of that, if you feel that they're worthy of praise, did you give God the glory for that? I love an example that I've heard my pastor give constantly, which is people be asking for the car. And they'll be like, oh, if God blesses me with a car, I'm going to bring people to church. And then they get blessed with the car.
And when the brother, those maintenance fees.
And then when the brother is like, yo, can I get a ride to church? Nah, gas is kind of expensive. Not going to do that trip. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but hold on. So are you giving God the props? Is this something that's worthy of praise? Is it excellent? Because right now it's sounding like it's just benefiting you.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes the same direction for the marriage, right? It goes the absolute same direction for the marriage, because are the things that you're doing in your marriage excellent and worthy of praise? There we go again with, is how you're treating your wife or your husband excellent, worthy of praise? You see what I'm saying? There's so much that goes into it. That's a lot of times what causes the problems. And a lot of times it causes the problems because you are not focusing yourself on those things. Your marriage isn't in that. Your workplace is not in that. Your kids aren't in that. There's so many, businesses are not in that. So there's a lot of issues there, but that's why it's so important, the perspective of it, putting him in the center of it, because really he's going to be able to guide you to all of that. He's the one driving the ship. I want to get to another point. I think Carol wrote, what if your partner is not a believer? Again, Carol, I think that's, I'm going to give you a verse very quickly. There's a lot to dive into. 1 Corinthians 7, I would recommend reading that chapter. There's something very key in there. But again, you need to look at the entirety of the situation, because things are all dependent on the situation, right? The word says, to the rest I say, I, not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who was an unbeliever and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. If any woman has a husband who was an unbeliever and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise, your children will be unclean. And it continues to go on. But then it says, but if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. Now, there's more into that, right? There's a lot more into that. But why is that key? If they go, because a lot of times they'll be like, oh, this person, God, and your spirits clash, the spirits clash. They probably might choose to leave on their own. And that's something, if they leave, so it says right there, so be it. Like, let it go. That's it. But again, this does not condone certain things. It does not condone, for example, different kinds of abuses and stuff like that. That's why that's why you need to look at the entire situation. But just on, hey, I believe and he doesn't believe, or she, I believe and she doesn't believe, that's not enough, because there is examples that can be set by that. And that marriage can be what brings that person to Christ. You don't know, but again, that's why it's important to get God's direction. That's why it's important to look at everything in its entirety, and see, because you might, there might be an out there. So there's a lot that goes into that. The other thing that I wanted to go ahead and mention as well is, really, when you're looking at all these different situations with the marriage, when you're looking at the kids, when you're looking at all that stuff, you really, again, have to watch out for the direction of who is going to give you the instruction, who's going to give you the advice. Because again, if they're not following along with the captain in the boat, they just hopped in the boat, believe me, the enemy will use them. Like, they will be used, and you don't want to go down that route. You really don't want to go down that route. So just be careful with everything. And it goes back to the whole thing. Ask for direction on everything from him. But there's a lot that you can unpack there.
Mindsets are very contagious. What you consistently surround yourself with, you will eventually become or believe.
Mm-hmm.
There are many things that won't serve your progression or healing. So let that sink in. Now I want to go ahead and jump on to the currency of life is time. How we spend how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives, right? It's whatever we put our focus on, right? If you focus on the problems, you're only going to get more problems. If you focus on the solution, you will eventually find the solution, right, to better your situation. You can't get time back. You got 14 hours to sleep, work, and live life. Stop wasting your time on things that are no good or irrelevant for your path or journey. And that comes for self and if involved with someone else. We talk about time. Time is your greatest luxury. We must value time over everything, including money, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that you can solve with money, but how do you make money? You need your time, right? How are you working towards your stability mentally and in general? Taking your time for yourself. So time is everything. How am I spending my time is what we have to ask ourselves, right? With whom? What you spend your time on will eventually determine how your future will look. It will determine your growth, development, and changes overall. Quit spending time around people who bring conflict, drama, depression, anxiety, etc. Anything negative. Do you spend your time on things that move you forward, or have you spent your time on things that hold you back, or in the past that held you back? Life is really simple. Many times we are the ones who complicate it all because of our perspective, our reaction, our response, or our surroundings. I want to go ahead and also read. We have another anonymous message here, big bro.
Okay. Hit me with that. What we got?
I want to go backwards with this. Saying sorry for writing too much. You're never writing too much. If there's more that you need to say, go ahead and add it as I read this. So this is in Spanish. Siempre que hablas algo que no quiere escuchar, te dice que te calle, y si ves que te compras algo, tú gastas mucho. So they put in the blame. Okay. Un día te trata bien, otro no. Si es verdad, te hace sentir culpable si hiciste algo bueno o ganaste más dinero que él en una semana. So that sounds to me like there's conflict taking place. Comparing when, again, is what we mentioned earlier today. You shouldn't be comparing finances, because if you're together, married or not, you're together. What's yours is his, and what's his should be yours as well, right? There should be mutuality in everything overall. And I feel like, how can you not have trust issues when dealing with what we just finished reading, right? how can you not question your future with someone who thinks that way or treats you that way, right? Because if anything, someone should be excited for the fact that you make more than them or you made more than them, because it just doesn't matter and shouldn't be compared. If you made more, that means that you both made more, right? Because you're both going to do a lot more, whether it's grocery shopping. Now you have enough to sustain you for the next few months. Now you don't have to think about the struggle, the mortgage, the rent, the car payment, whatever it is. So it's like looking at that. It shouldn't be like, oh, you made more. Wow, we're making it happen. You know, it should be more like we're making it happen. So I
This
don't know,
this
Pedro,
actually
what can
this
you add
actually
on to
goes
that?
back in this goes back to the selfishness,
Big
the
time.
absolute selfishness, and this is how you could tell that the presence of God is not there in that. I mean, and I'm going to give you again. I like to back it up with what the word says, right? Some Pharisees came, tried to trap him with this question, talking about trying to trap Jesus with this question: should a man be allowed to divorce his wife for just any reason? Funny that this is the topic that's all of a sudden come up numerous times. And Jesus says, haven't you read the scriptures? Jesus replied, they record that from the beginning, God made them male and female. And he said, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. They are made one. That is a union. You know, that marriage, that's a union. That's how it works. When you're married, it's supposed to be a union. Since they are no longer two, but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. Now, here's the thing. God joined together. A lot of people did never put God in the middle of the relationship. This is why it gets very tricky. A lot of people never put God in the middle of the relationship, and God didn't join it together, but they went ahead and got into this, right? They went ahead and got into this, and then they've got this disconnect, because this is, again, where we have the issue with a lot of marriages that are out there, a lot of relationships that are out there, because the thing is, both people are looking for their own thing. Because this kind of thing of like, yo, how are you going to make more money than me? What? We're supposed to be one flesh. We're supposed to be the same. We are, you know, it's a union. We're together. So you know what that means? If you're doing well, I'm doing well. But that's where we start to miss the focus, because the perspective has been switched into a very selfish perspective that, oh, it's a marriage, but each one of us are separate. If you're separate, it's not a marriage. If you're worrying about you got more money than me, and that's a point of conflict, then right there you're showing that you don't believe that you two are one. You don't believe that that's been joined together. You know what I'm saying? If you start to think, okay, but you do this and like I should be allowed to do this and you can't do that, hold up. Again, if it's one flesh, y'all should be, you know, there should be things that work. There shouldn't be discrepancies there. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, do I tell this hand over here that it can get food, but I tell this one that it can't? Like, no, that doesn't make sense. You know? Or my left eye can be open throughout the day, but my right eye can't. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Let's break it, you know, let's just break that down. Because when you're talking about one flesh, it's one body. You know what I'm saying? That in and of itself is an issue. But that's an issue that we can say we're seeing today more than ever, where you have, no, I'm going to manage my own money. I'm going to manage my own thing. Why do you want that? You want that so that the other person doesn't tell you what to do in a lot of cases. So they're not looking at your stuff, you know? It's like, bro, I see marriages where each person pays their own cell phone. Forget the family plan. It's like, what's the issue with that? Like, I mean, you get a discount on your bill, right? I see families that don't file their taxes together. The wife files her own taxes, and each year, even though they're married, one of them will claim the dependent, and maybe the next year they'll switch. And the reason why is because the tax return money that comes in, that's mine, and you have yours. I'm not saying that that's everybody, but I'm just telling you, I've seen it. You know, it's like everybody's looking for their own thing. I've even gone as far as seeing instances in which, like, marriage that broke apart recently, and they've been together for years, you know, a lot of years, 2 kids. One of them in there, you know, one of them is already grown. The other one finally, you know, about to be on their own and everything. Obviously, a long time. And what really broke it down was like, yo, this person was always worrying about their money, was you know, constantly taking care of their family outside of our family. I was having to supply everything for the family. They never asked my opinion on everything. They take trips without me, do this without me. And it just got to be a point where it was like, yo, we're so separate that why am I dealing with this? Because we're so separate. But the thing is, there's a lot of relationships that are currently rocking like that. They're currently in full operation mode that way. And if that's how it operates, I'm sorry. It's going to sound harsh, but it does not sound like God is anywhere in that relationship. He's not a focus in that relationship. Or if he is, it's one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a thing of like, oh, I want God in the relationship, but this other person doesn't. Because if they did, they can't possibly operate this way. Because if they do both believe that God is in it, your actions are showing otherwise, and you need to have a come to Jesus moment to really analyze yourself, each person, and be like, yo, is this how God would operate in this marriage? Because I don't think that makes any sense, you know? So I feel for that person if that's a situation that they're living. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. That's a terrible situation to be in. Nobody should be having to put up with that. Really, it's asking God and going more into detail for direction on what to do in that relationship. But I can tell you, that relationship's not going to fix itself if God's not in the middle of it, because it's very obvious that God's not in the middle of that relationship right now in this point in time. And if he 100%. Is, it's very one-sided with one person. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to rock that way, because that's not a union. God is the union that brings them together. And it's not rocking that way. So, be praying for that situation.
Consistency was what we spoke about throughout this whole episode. Here and there, right? It's easy for us to apply consistency when it comes to our job, our school, right? Because it's obvious if we don't, we'll lose our jobs or we'll fail the course, which prevents from moving on to the next grade, right? Now, most of us fail to apply consistency when it comes to our vision, our dreams, ourselves, right? But then if you think about it the same way I mentioned before, lack of consistency causes for us to lose ourselves in this manner, right? You can't afford to lose yourself, which is what we were mentioning before. You have to focus on you. You can't deal with certain situations. You shouldn't accept certain things. You can't have high tolerance for the wrong things, right? When most of it at times is the obvious. And once it's the obvious, it's like, I know the decision is going to hurt, or it's really like troubling to even think about something you never thought would happen. But at the end of the day, once you take that step to make it different for you or your family, to make it different for how you're feeling, your current state of mind, the emotions you're dealing with right now, that's when everything changes, you know? Sometimes it's a hard decision that we have to make right? Now, what are you willing to deal with? You're still going to have to deal. Regardless, you're going to have to deal with it, right? But do you want to deal with not making the decision because it's going to hurt? Or are you willing to deal with the decision you made, but now it's hurting less and less and less because you're focusing on you and fixing your situation? No one is ever going to see the journey. No one is ever going to see the process, right? Because there's a lot of situations that we go through that we're not there to see what's really happening. But the pain that you're feeling is much greater than what you're expressing, which comes down to, what is it that I have to do for me? What is it that I have to do for my family? What is it that I have to do in general to avoid feeling this way. Because again, what I mentioned before, we only have 14 hours in a day. You know, life can be short when you're dealing with so much stress, when you're dealing with unnecessary stress, unnecessary situations, because you're unable to enjoy your life. You're unable to unlock the opportunities that life has for you. So what happens? You get stuck in the same situation. You get stuck doing and dealing with the same thing over and over. You're unable to grow. You're stunned. You're unable to do new things. You're unable to think straight. You can't even think straight or for yourself. So it's really something that comes down, like, we really have to focus on us. Set fear aside. Life isn't perfect. Life isn't supposed to be a certain way. Do the right thing. Treat others how you like to be treated. Respect, love, care, and watch how all falls into place.
Facts.
Watch how all falls into place. Acceptance is freeing. Sometimes we don't want to accept things, and those things hold us back. Sometimes these things may even destroy us. So, do you want to be defeated, or do you want to defeat your situation? Not the other person that's causing the situation, or even if it's yourself. Do you want to be defeated, or do you want to defeat the situation? Which goes back to make it better for you and those around you. Reading an anonymous statement, because I don't want to miss it. Wow. 25 years praying for change. For tolerance. 25 years. That's a lot. That's a lot. It does show the strength and patience you have. And there's a reason why it's been going on for 25 years, because you can't always just put the blame on you. I'm sure families involved, children are involved, and you didn't want it to affect them. And you're not only thinking about yourself, which you're not being selfish at all, you're thinking about the life that you're giving your family, the life that you're giving your children by trying to keep it together. We definitely got to pray on that, big bro. It's tough. It's 25 years. Where's the happiness? Where's the happiness? Great, you're strong. And everything that you're doing for your family has been great. It's been they've accomplished a lot. Now, 25 years, how have you been throughout the 25 years? How are you feeling internally? You've come a long way. You've come a long way. It's just a decision that has to be made, though. A huge decision that has to be made. How is separation going to make your situation any different? Or how is staying and hoping and praying for change going to change your situation? Or, it's been 25. Like, have you seen any differences? Have you seen any changes, any improvements? Because people can change through time. But it comes to a point where you're not giving up on the situation, because it's been 25 years. You're not giving up on the situation. What you're doing is becoming more aware of you and your feelings and what you need to do to step out of those dark places that you step in and out from time to time, because of what you've been dealing and tolerating, all for a better future for your children.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think there's a couple of things that comes to mind for me. On one hand, I think of somebody that doesn't recognize the issues. It's very difficult, because it's kind of like alcoholics, kind of like drug addicts. You take them to rehab because the change that they need in their life, but the only time that you can bring them is if they're a minor. If you're the guardian, you're the parent, you can bring them if they're a minor in many cases, so that they get clean, because you have the guardianship over them. They're not old enough to make their own decisions, right? But it changes when it's a grown-up. If I take you, no matter, you could be about to die. if I take you and they ask you, do you believe you have an issue? And you say no, I can't take this person. Sorry. Because part of the issue is, in order for you to change, you have to recognize,
Acceptance.
I got these faults. I got to be able to accept that. And now I need the help, right? So that's one to definitely pray about, because, especially if this person's far, from the Lord, maybe doesn't want to know anything about the Lord, it becomes very complex, because this is somebody that maybe doesn't want to know anything. And you keep saying, time is valuable and everything like that. And, what was one of the things that I gave, I think it was a verse I gave weeks ago that was talking about, you got to work your own salvation, like focus on your own salvation, right? And then, of course, that leads to other people being, seeing you as the example because of how you're living, right? And the thing is that we have to see in in some instances, you really got to pay attention to how you're living and how that affects, because at the same time, the other side that I wanted to talk about was many instances can have you forget who God says that you are, because you're consistently receiving something different from somebody else. And the enemy wants to rob your identity. We talked about the enemy's heavy on that identity theft, especially right now. He doesn't want you to know who you are. So a lot of times we know who we are, but we start to put it to the back burner. We start to forget because of instances like this, where it's like, okay, I believe I need to stick around, but I'm constantly receiving this, and this is telling me that I'm somebody different than who God says I am, and that's another thing that that I thought about a number of different times in the conversation, and I hadn't brought it up because I was looking for the good, the perfect timing for it. And I think now is the perfect time, because the biggest issue and the biggest amount of water that we let in our boats is that we don't remember who we are. And because we don't remember who we are, we think that the water is meant to be in our boat. We think that we deserve to sink. We're just going to go with the flow. We turn a complete blind eye to the captain in the boat. We almost pretend like he's not there, because we've forgotten how to identify him. And you don't want to know why you've forgotten how to identify him? Because you were made in his image, but you don't realize what your image is. So you can't even recognize that he's there, because you don't recognize your image. You've forgotten. You know what I'm saying? Like, if everybody's got a mirror in their house. You at least see yourself in the mirror, on the camera, on your phone, somewhere, so you know what you look like. If we eliminated cameras, mirrors, there's gonna come a point where you don't recognize yourself anymore, because you're not getting to see who you are. At what point are you going to remember who you are? You have to think. It's not as easy as like, one day I'm just going to step in front of the mirror and recognize who I am. Okay, tell that to babies and dogs and stuff like that. Animals who don't know any better. They're learning. They look in a mirror and they have no idea who they are. Kids think that that's another child, because they don't know how to recognize who they are yet. But that's the danger of being stuck where you might be stuck. Because if you're stuck where you might be stuck and you're receiving something different, you might no longer recognize the person that's driving the boat, because you don't recognize who you are. That's a danger in and of itself. That's a complete danger in and of itself. That this goes back to the fact that you're loved. This goes back to the fact that you're strong. Even if you hear that you're weak, or you believe that you're weak because of the storms that are coming in, you are strong. You're forgiven. You're not abandoned, but you're adopted. You are hopeful. You have a purpose. You're victorious. I mean, we can go on and on and on with the list of who you are, right? like you're royalty, all these different things. But unfortunately, you might be somewhere where something is making you feel something completely different than that. I don't know if that's the case of this person, but 25 years can make you forget who you were, who God says that you are. And at the same time, that's the danger. We really got to think about that.
And you know, there's another message, anonymous. I believe in fasting and prayer. When I say fasting, I mean no food, period, for 3 days, and just pray every day. I always hear from God when I have done this, and that's actually awesome. There's definitely different ways for you to handle it. Matter of fact, like the whole fasting, I'm a believer in that. Uh, Aside from fasting, it's just breaking that routine. You want to break the way you've been feeling for the past few years. Break that routine. You know what? I'm gonna dedicate some time to myself because I can't feel this way. And there's gonna come to a point where your partner's asking now, like, why all of a sudden? I mean, it's really not their business, right? If they don't want to hear you out, or for the past 25 years, maybe you did try communicating um, your emotions and you know uh, the ways of him or her, and you haven't received any change or any change overall in that relationship to eliminate the doubt that you're feeling, eliminate those situations of comparing one another. The selfishness hasn't been eliminated. So now, you know what? Maybe you need to be selfish and focus on you. You're not going to stop taking care of your family. It's just that they're going to see one slight difference. You're taking care of you. What does that mean?
Yep.
You know what? Let me go for a walk. Let me join a gym and focus on me and put myself in pain, because I don't want to deal with the other pain that I've been dealing with for the past few years. Let me go ahead and fast. Let me go ahead and put myself on a diet. The reason why I love the fact that they brought up the fasting and I'm adding the diet and all this, they do say that there are foods that also cause trouble in our lives in terms of mood. It changes your mood.
I believe it.
It gives you cloudy thoughts, right? And I've been one to actually experience that. And I did notice, I've told you many times how in the past I've gotten out on my own to eat alone, trying new foods, eliminating meats, right? Not that I'm a vegan or anything, but I was just breaking the cycle, the norm. And that usually helps in other areas of our life. If you decide to eliminate meat and you know what, I'm only going to eat vegetables, I'm going to eat rice or whatever it is, you're basically testing your willpower. You're figuring out your potential outside of what you consider the norm. And we're not talking about tolerating the mistreatment, the disrespect. When you put yourself to challenge yourself, you know what, I'm going to get on a diet. You're actually testing yourself out to see how long I can go through with it. You're learning more about you. You're making changes in your life to improve your life.
One thing as well when it comes,
definitely can't leave out the rice.
One thing as well when it comes to the fasting, for those that maybe don't know or look, maybe some of y'all do know about the fasting. One thing that I do want to go ahead and share with you as well that's very important when it comes to the fasting is that the fasting is not about starving yourself, because sometimes people will think that it's meant to be about starving yourself. Especially when you're talking about biblical fasting. That biblical fasting is supposed to be for you to give something up, right? Number one, for most people, the easiest thing for them to think of is food. But I'm going to add something very quickly to it. I don't want to, but it's so much more than just food. And in reality, the Christian perspective of fasting is supposed to be that you're fasting something. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to be going through the whole day starving of hunger. But no, it's supposed to also be like, and I'm going to be looking more for support from God for what I am giving up in this time of fasting. and it's discipline. It's that he sustains you. And a lot of times he'll give you answers. Now, you shouldn't do fasting expecting an answer for something, but a lot of
Yeah.
times because you're doing it, he gives you the answer to something. It's like his grace that does it, right? Why do I mention it? I mention it for the very reason that the fasting doesn't necessarily need to be food. Most people think about it as food because biblically you've seen food as the main thing. But in reality, it might not be much for you to give up food, but it might be a lot for you to give up that Facebook and that Instagram. So maybe your fast needs to be a social media fast. Maybe it takes you a lot to give up that Netflix. So your fast needs to be that Netflix. You see what I'm saying? It could be something different. Doesn't always need to be that.
Not always food.
So it's a matter of asking for direction in terms of what it is. And, trying to go with that route.
Definitely. Man, I feel like today, go ahead and drop a heart in the chat if you felt all we discussed today. Today's topic was amazing, and I really hope everyone received it. I really hope everyone has someone that came to mind that may need to hear a great message, and just feel free to send that link over.
Absolutely.
The YouTube link. Send it to whoever needs to hear it. Really appreciate all the engagement we get on the chat. Really appreciate the trust. Amazing,
Bro, on the same wavelength. I was thinking the same thing. Those people that were dropping anonymously, we've told you guys, take us at our word. This is a calling that God has given us for this. It's not for no reason, it's with a purpose. And part of that is being able to see that we are legit here and that it's not judgment. Christ doesn't want to judge you. He doesn't want to judge you on these things. He just wants a connection of relationship with him to give you the direction on those things. It's part of that trust. If you have that trust, you have that faith. Having that faith moves mountains. You know what I'm saying? So thank you really for everybody that has dropped an anonymous, because that means that, you're believing that God is going to answer through that. I know that you're not looking for the answer from us. You're hoping that God talks through us to give you the answer. So thank you for that trust. And I really hope that God has given you an answer. And again, it doesn't stay here. If you feel that you need to go further into it, take us at our word for that as well. And we want the best for you. We know that Christ wants the best for you. We want the best for you in that as well. Because this is about building people up. Christ building people up.
Amen. And just a reminder, there's always going to be troubles. There's always going to be issues that we come across, whether it's direct or indirect, whether it's in our household or out of our homes, whether it's at work or out of work, just in general. Whenever we're in these dark places, we feel like tomorrow's going to be no different. We feel like we're running in place and there's nothing that's going to change, right? And I came across something that said, I think it was, today was the tomorrow you were so worried about yesterday. And the more we remind ourselves that, we will always see improvements, but we have to take action. We have to, put in the effort, right? Pray heavy, because you're always going to receive a response. You're always going to receive a yes or a no. You're always going to get an open door or a door that's going to close. But you got the answer you were looking for. And never go against it. Never go against it.
And sometimes the answer won't be the best answer that you could hear. What you can take heart in is, if it's the answer that God is giving you, that it's from God, you feel that peace, you don't have to be afraid. Just remember, the same way that where you have peace, God is there. Just know wherever you have fear, that fear doesn't come from God. That fear comes from somebody else. So if it's making you afraid, you got to look at what's the source, because God can eliminate that fear, especially if he's giving you peace in the direction that you're going, but you're starting to suddenly feel fear, is because somebody else doesn't want you going in that direction, you know, for that particular reason. So that's why we're here, to build you up. That's what we're supposed to do. So,
amen. And if there's anything that anyone wants to go ahead and drop in the chat before we get off, if there's
anything else that you got to say, anything.
If they want to connect.
Yeah, it's always open. It's always open. Again, if you have testimony or anything like that, you're always welcome to go ahead and do it. You're still, you know, on time to go ahead and do that. Just remember, testimony, you know, what God is doing in our lives, that testimony will go and help to build us up, you know, so don't hesitate. There are people that will be lifted up by that. And I know that, you know, if you want to give it and you do it right now or do it next time, that's going to build people up. And if not, I know that in due time, we're going to get it, because we're starting again to see how people are trusting more what God is doing here with just the anonymous questions. I think this may be a high for the anonymous questions that we've gotten today. I don't think we've ever received a volume like that. So definitely, you know, people are looking for the answer. And again, I hope God gave the answer, that, you know, that God gave the answer there, you know.
Really, and we appreciate everyone that, again, took the time to join us today, to listen
Most
in,
definitely.
to engage. And for those who do it regularly, you don't know how much that means to us, you know. And again, we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to provide more, which is the goal. You know, we're not done here. It's going to be so much better, so much bigger in the near future. But really, like, we appreciate and love the fact that you're here with us Thursday. You know, you could be doing anything else, but you chose to be here with us. Thank you. Thank you again. Don't forget, we're on every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time, West Coast.
Amen, amen. And next week, be ready to join us. We're going to be going with episode 30. 30 episodes
30.
deep.
Yep.
Would have not thought that this time would have come so quick, but it has, and it's a blessing.
Time flies, for sure. Time flies. Well, thanks again, everyone. Hope everyone. Oh, wait a second. Let's see what did we receive there. It was a great message, like always. Amen, Carol. Amen. You actually covered the stuff that I had ministered on. Thank you, Carol, Corinne, everyone else who's on with us. Really appreciate you all. Samaria, definitely blessings over you, and soon to be member of the family. Yep.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Sonia, thank you. God bless you too. Mommy, Lordy. Who else we got? Millie Mills, Bebecita, and Erica. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us, for real. We'll definitely see you next week for episode 30. Please remember, we have it on YouTube. Share. Pass it on. Don't keep the message to yourself. There's a lot more people that needs to hear this. All right. So we'll see you next week, Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and 5:30 p.m. Pacific, West Coast.
West Coast.
Have a great night. See you then.
God bless all of you.